How can this be? How can this be? Maybe the man of the hour can answer it for us. Mike from around the world. Mike, how you doing tonight? Mike from around the world. Okay. Mike from around the world. Okay. Mike from around the world. Can't hear Mike at all. Hello? Hello, Mike, you there?
Can you hear me, Pastor Paul?
Now I hear you. Yes, now we hear you loud and clear.
Okay, that's technology for you.
I know it.
All right.
Yeah, we never know what technology is going to do or who's controlling it.
I was speaking in the wrong side of the microphone.
Okay, all right. I've done that a lot. People say I speak from the wrong side of my mind a lot. That's okay. It's all right.
Oh well.
Mike,
hey, I heard some of your conversation before. I just popped on just a little bit of it, and somebody gave me a call, and they said, okay, I'm convinced. I said, convinced of what? And they were listening to you too. It was a colleague. They said, okay, how does he know about the sun? Why would he be drawn to that article of all articles? I thought that was amazing.
Mike,
you just kind of
I kind of stumbled. Out. Well, you know what? To be honest with you, I stumbled on that one yesterday, and I said, "Whoa, what do you mean? Wait, the energy coming off the sun in a reverse, coming around the sun in an opposite direction of what the normal rotation is, and it's 3 times stronger and faster than the ones that are coming off the sun. So that means it's got to be coming from another source." Okay, and it even says in the article that the scientists are baffled. They're confused. Now, I think it means that is this the beginning of some disclosure, Mike?
Well, they can't hide it for too much longer. You have all these folks out there with these sensors and, devices. They're going to pick it up, and we coined that. We followed physics and called them eddy fields. That's what we call them on the sun. But it's a phenomena that is not so easily tracked, and it takes a while before, it's an interaction that when people begin to learn the interaction, doubt of a great many things goes right out the window. They're going to say it opens up a brand new can of worms, basically, right? Yep. To even know about that, because the Earth has those same fields, and we have a dampening effect. That slows down some of the effects of the sun hitting Earth. But what's happening is the dampening field of the Earth is dying. It's going away. And it actually slows down some of these reverse vortices exponentially, right? That's what it does. That's what the Earth does. But as the dampening field of the Earth dies, these waves and these wave patterns are going to smack Earth on a continuous basis, non-stop, and everything changes up to that point. So you're looking at a lot of biological changes that will take place because of that, and it's already underway because the Earth, the Landau dampening fields of the Earth, that mechanism is dying. So we're in for very interesting times.
All right, Mike. So when you say the dampening field is dying, I don't know what that means. This is new to me. Help me understand what that means.
The Earth has a counter mechanism to those fields, to those vortices on the sun, right? It has a protective measure, you could say, kind of like the magnetosphere protects us from solar winds. Well, there's a dampening field that rotates in the reverse direction of most wave patterns given off by the Earth. And it hits the sun's waves headed towards us and slows them down exponentially, right?
Okay.
But that field is dying. It's going away. It's dissolving, which means nothing will be there very shortly to hold the sun, that power back from these waves reaching out into Earth. What? Believe it or not, it's very noisy in space, Pastor Paul. The sun reaches out and touches everything in our solar system. We just can't see in that realm, but electronically and through special optics, all those patterns and all the interactions can be seen. And it's much like a circuit. But the Earth, it's protective measures against most of these unseen things it's dying, and we're not going to be protected from that. That means our spectrum of light is going to change physically. So the night blue days that people see right now with a yellow sun or whitish sun, all that changes. We're going to experience colors like turquoise. Imagine coming out and the entire sky is purple and turquoise.
What? During the daytime?
So yeah, the light spectrum is going to be changed without that protective field. We don't have a filter. We still have a filter against some of the damaging radiation, but not against those wave patterns, which will permeate all the way to the core of the Earth.
Wow. So now, would you say that the binary system then is disrupting these vortices? What do they call it again? Vortices.
We call them eddy fields. They're reverse vortices in the sun. Yeah.
Is this the binary system? The Planet X type thing that's causing this?
Most certainly, because the sun is attempting to counterbalance all of what's happening outside the heliosphere, but the problem is we have an issue inside the heliosphere. Now we have interplanetary disruptions. Last year or the year before last, it was external. It's not external anymore. So we've already crossed a pretty big threshold, and it's going to be very difficult for anybody to sit there and lie to the public, too much longer and say, well, there's nothing out there. Which is why they had to either get rid of these older influences that were in charge of this alien stuff and secrecy with the CIA. That would be the Bush senior and his group. All those people had to go away because they were running out of time. It's only a matter of time anyway before massive physical changes are going to be seen all over the earth, and people are not going to buy the line. They're going to blame the government. Does not want to be blamed. These people don't want to be blamed because that puts their lives in danger. What they want to do is position themselves to give answers to what people will see. Now, but take caution in that. They'll give answers to what people will see. They're not going to give you the truth. They're going to attempt to answer what you can visually see and experience. Unfortunately, they're still not going to disclose everything because they can't really. If they disclosed everything past ball, everybody would be in a panic.
Yeah,
and so they're not going to do that.
They're not going to do it. They can't. The whole social order would completely come apart, and we would be it would be gang warfare. It would be massive chaos and panic and lawlessness worldwide. Yeah. So, but you can't hide it forever. For instance, yesterday there was a meteor fireball of some sort that exploded over Bloomington, Indiana, and it was captured on security cameras. The sound of it was incredible. It rattled homes. It sounded like it sounded like 1,000 rocket ships just booming, but roaring.
Yeah, that was small. That was tiny. That was a small one. Can you imagine a much larger one with an atmospheric explosion like that? That would be in Russia, for example. It blew out in every direction, and it injured people just from the concussion wave. So you can imagine something about 20 times bigger, right? Which is not big as far as we size things, but it would cause some severe damage and likely fatalities. But this is exactly what we're getting into, especially in the something has changed, because in the southern hemisphere, they're going to be in trouble. I hate to say that. It was always thought to be one of the safe places. No, they're going to be in trouble. Our travels in the solar system have been revealing that there really is no safe hemisphere to the Earth, and that everything is up on its head, Pastor Paul. There are such instabilities right now. We can't feel them because essentially we're inside of a car, and we don't feel all the bumps and rocks and turbulence on the road. But we have elements behind us, we have elements in front of us, and all around us. They're catching up to the movement of our solar system, and they're really about to press us on all sides. So everybody's going to be exposed to a variety of issues, and of course, all these events are going to cause heat to rise beyond the point of tolerance. Yeah, we're going to have that is to say this year, get ready for more fires in Australia. They might want to start acting right now. They probably don't need to wait. But Pascal, we just have exotic gases that are coming into the mix. We have unknown these long trails of rocks they're almost like arms. They'll be slamming into our solar system. The Earth is going to be a part of that. From a different direction, we have a larger meteor field in front of us that will reach in a couple of months. We have plus our own asteroid belt, so that's going to be disrupted. We don't have
okay. Exotic gases. Okay, I'm still stuck there. What coming from where? The Earth or from outer space?
No. That's from beyond the heliosphere, and it's already penetrated inwardly. So you're looking at a lot of unknowns. These are basically unknowns, right? And I say unknowns because they always knew that we would end up experiencing these things. Now, as far as the composition of the gases, they're exotic. They're not. Some of these things are not on the periodic table. Some of these things are not cataloged. They have very odd and strange and weird properties. And we're going to encounter all of that. So, if we're held together, we're going to be held together by God's grace and God's grace alone. It won't be because of physics or anybody's technique to get rid of these things. It'll be by God's grace.
Amen.
Or we will not be held together at all. So,
talk to me about
fast
these
approaching enormous changes.
Okay, tell me about these arms of rocks. So these are not our normal Kuiper belt of asteroids.
No,
this is something else, like waves of rocks come flying into our solar system. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, for a long time, by way of observation, even with all the optics we have in the sky, there's still objects that are way out there that travel pretty fast, and they've been coming inbound. It's very difficult. It's almost like if you were traveling on the highway and somebody threw a rock, you would never know it until they threw that rock and that rock impacted your car, right? Because your velocity is just too fast. You could see everything on the highway. You could see all the birds, skies, trees, everything else. But that one person throwing the rock is random, right? It cannot be calculated because it just happened. And we're in such close proximity to other things that you can't calculate something you never saw in the first place. And so we're facing this issue more and more and more. These arms that they're starting to spot, at first they thought they were streaks, but then after further observation, they found that they are in fact dangerous. And these are long arms of some type of object that broke up and left a trail of just debris. And these arms swirl. They swirl. It's almost like a throwing star. Somebody would take some type ninja star and throw it in space. That's what it looks like, but it's full of rocks and it's headed right towards us. And it's not just one. There are too many. Let's put it that way. There are too many. They're coming from not one direction, Pascal. They're coming from all different directions. So there's a randomness about the universe that's very frightening to a lot of people who have been privy to see beyond certain points, and it's not so stable as one would think. It's very hostile, very extremely hostile.
So, okay, now what about
we're at that point where we meet it.
Well, what about all the probes out there and spacecrafts that we've sent out there and others, China and Russia and different people?
Oh boy, you believe they're still out there, huh? Well, I'll put it this way: if I sent a probe out, and everybody paid for it. Do you really think I would tell anybody? That probe got destroyed a month ago. I wouldn't tell anybody that.
I guess not.
You can't do that. So when they come up with these stories and they say, well, so-and-so went beyond the heliosphere. Yeah, great. That means nobody can see it. Nobody can contact it. And only 5 people on Earth have the codes to it. What a way to hide something. And so you always have to think this way, too, because if you can't see it, and if no astronomer can see it, in truth, you don't know if it's real or not. There are a lot of falsehoods out there, Pascal. A lot of people have been, they've been staking many foundations of science upon falsehoods. And we just have entered into a time where these falsehoods are going to be exposed. It's going to cause a lot of people to scratch their heads. They're going to have to recant half of their criticisms of other folks. They're just going to be messed up. And for a lot of people, it's going to scare them. right? One thing, like if people knew that the speed of light is not a barrier, right? That would just mess people up. We're talking about people that are not scientists. The average person out there that believes that theory, it would rock their foundation a bit. They would say, well, if that's not true, well, then what else is not true, right? And so this year alone, there will be published documents stating just that. Now, how many people are going to be thrown off by that small factor?
So did you just say there's a new field of science here? I mean, a new law? There's something be faster than the speed of light?
Well, as we learn, we clarify, Pastor Paul, right?
Okay, yeah.
As in science is a bunch of theories. It's a bunch of theories. Nothing is fact until it's proven. Theories often change, but somehow people have accepted theory as truth. Theory is not truth. Theory is a theory. It's an educated guess based upon everything they have evidence of.
I think the theory of Darwinism,
it changes.
The theory of Darwinism has become a fact in America. I mean, our educational system has drilled that home so long they've made it a fact.
Well, you know, we're brainless in that regard, but even in that, deep studies of DNA have proven that this will mess you up. Mankind's deep DNA scans have revealed that man has no commonality with just about anything on this earth. How about that? So
that's good.
That is intelligent design, period. Amen. There's no randomness in the human body. But will they go out and publish this to everybody? Because everybody does not know how to read peer-reviewed papers. But it's in there. There are other facts that have come forward that totally turn everything upside down. Right?
Yep.
They did. Darwinism was, this guy hated the church.
Yep.
He hated the church.
Yes, he
and
did.
he came up with this theory because man is on this quest, right? They want to disconnect from God. And so they come up with all these theories because they don't want God to be number one or the master engineer of all things. They want to separate from God and be their own entity, their own king, their own Lord, their own Savior, but it's just not going to work. And they have they kind of backed themselves into a corner because now we live in the times when external things, the ancient things, are returning, and when they return, they don't care what man did; they're just going to return. And if people don't have a spiritual foundation, you know, they're just not going to have good fortune in the days to come. Because when the spiritual things, when the ancient things, when the old things come back again, and it's going to start with the appearance of things in the heavens and of course the instabilities in earth, but when they begin to manifest, people are going to go, they're going to rush to find the Bible. They're going to rush to find anybody who knows about the Bible because they're going to realize they've been lied to. They've been in romper room, and somebody told a big one. They don't have the truth. The world is not the romper room. The world is outside romper room, and they're going to be all messed up. But during that time, they're going to rush and try to find people with good foundation, like yours. You're a pastor, plus you're not afraid to look at several different things,
right.
But you keep it on the foundation of Christ. And that's very important because there's going to be a lot of ministers that nobody's going to listen to because they did not by way of conviction talk about those things that they had confirmation of internally. Right. We may not have the facts, but there is confirmation of certain things. You can't ignore these things.
Yep.
But we live in a time of the manifestation of these things.
Amen.
And an answer is going to be given spiritually in a lot of areas, but you're going to have a lot of people. There's just going to be found out to be very
a lot of frauds,
not in a good position.
So in other words, we're going to find out there's a lot of frauds out there who have
better believe it.
Yeah, and the theories. So all these theories and all of these what they've been feeding the public. The Bible says that which has been done in secret is going to be shouted from the housetop. So the exposure.
If you can hear me, Pastor Paul, I just lost sound. Oh, there you are.
There I am.
I lost sound.
Okay. I said that the Bible says that which is done in secret will be shouted from the housetop. And so the revealing, if you will, the revelation, the apocalypse of revealing of the truth is going to be happening and is happening. And the same thing with this binary system that's causing the heavens to shake and it's breaking. We had another volcano, Mike, near Japan. This thing erupted 21,000 feet into the air, ash. Unbelievable. Again, another underground situation, another submarine volcano. Isn't this what you said was going to happen time and time again? It's increasing.
We talked about this a couple of weeks ago, but I said they would not give those in Japan a warning. right?
You said that.
Believe me, it's not over. It's not over because that pumice is still coming up on the
yes,
shores
it is.
of many different places. And they're not going to give people a warning. It's a good I said when it blows, it'll be a good example for people that they're not going to warn anybody about anything. They're going to act like they never knew it. They have, my goodness, they've commissioned submarines to be on station in underwater facilities to watch these places, but they will not warn the public. You know, it's considered research. You don't have to report research. You know that, and that's how they do it.
Wow.
Whether it be military personnel or Space Command is down there under the waters. You have all the Air Force Command is under the waters, and so, but they're not going to report anything because it's in the realm of research. You're not obligated to report that. But we're going to have more and more and more of this, and underneath the waters, it looks like a nightmare. It just looks like a nightmare, and it's starting to really push up some critters. And when I say critters, I mean life forms that live very deep in the oceans. They have been disturbed, right?
Wow.
They're coming out. They're starting to kill off certain species of fish and other things, kind of like Florida. Florida, about a year ago, Pascal, in Florida, I was talking to some folks, and I said, listen, the Coast Guard has ran into some problems with some very large serpents with a girth of about 3 or 4 telephone poles. A serpent, sea serpent. And I said, the only way you're going to know this, and this was 2-3 years ago, I said, the manatees, their main diet are manatees. So I said, they're going to come up with a story talking about how the manatees are dying off, but don't believe that. It's going to be these serpents. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. But it's a problem in Florida. And the people who have encountered these things, they don't want those people talking to anybody. To anybody. But I think that's lifted now. So even this summer, when you watch, mark my words, you're going to hear stories about these they're black and white. That's the color of them, black and white. The belly is whitish color. The top is black. And these things, their main diet are manatees. And they're just going to eat up the rest. Is it something from the Twilight Zone? Of course not, because they have found eels. Now, certain species of eels, as of late, they have the girth of a telephone pole. Right? They don't know how long they are. They just know that they're deadly. They have found tentacle marks on submarines that they've had to repair in Norfolk, Virginia, when they dry dock them, and that doesn't look good. You know, there have been ships that have been damaged by sea life. We're not talking about whales. We're talking about critters with tentacles. So we have a lot of things being forced up from the deep due to instabilities, volcanism, things like that. And the oceans are becoming this weird, possibly unsafe place for a lot of, folks.
Well, okay. I mean, you talk about a serpent.
Encountering that stuff.
Yeah, you have a serpent, the girth of 4 telephone poles. You got these black and white serpents. Sounds like the kids of Leviathan, the demons of the sea. But we are seeing, the Bible does speak about the demonic forces of the sea, as well as Apollyon. It rises with a bunch of locusts, demons that come out of the abyss of the bottomless pit. I guess what we're dealing with here is it's like it's a convergence of every enemy of God, both in the air, the principalities of the air, the earth, the waters. I mean, is that what's happening? Are we seeing a convergence because the soon coming of King Jesus back to the planet, Mike? Are we seeing this?
I believe. You know what? I do believe that, Pastor Paul. I believe that the what's about to happen is one of the greatest events in creation itself. The birth of humanity into for the first time in a different form. And I believe that's going to be witnessed by all creation. So we're going to be spectacle number one. Right? We're going to be that city on a hill that cannot be hid because we're full of lights. But Satan is, when you're talking about animals, even people who have dogs, the people with animals should realize that when they have had a bad day, or they're not in the right mind, they're thinking maybe some thoughts they shouldn't, that their animals get aggressive. Animals can host whatever spirit a human being authorizes to be around in their households. And you see this out of their pets and everything ever so often. If you have a nice person, a bad person, the pets can often take on that persona of that bad person or the good person, vice versa. But what I'm saying is that the authority God gave us is always in operation. We just don't pay attention enough to really find it, because animals can host many different spirits and do weird things, like that girl in Africa that was taken off by these some terrorist group, and they two lions ran off the group, left the girl. The two lions sat by that girl until the rescue team came. And when the rescue team came, when those people in the field came, they saw the lions. And as soon as the lions saw them, both lions got up and walked away. The girl was unharmed. The girl was untouched. But they had moved that girl about, 75 miles from where she originally started from, into safety. And so it's not the first time, though. You've had gorillas do the same thing to infants. They have protected the infant and brought it back to civilization. You've had what are the other ones? The lions, what are they? Hyenas. You've had packs of hyenas that have protected children and grown people at the same time, refused to let any predator get near them until people came and got them. And it just so happens all these people have a backstory. You know what it is? They are believers in
Praise
Christ.
God.
Isn't that something?
That's
Every
right.
single last one of them are believers in Christ. So, but so that tells you right there, animals can be utilized for a multitude of purposes. And now that when mankind changes and they become highly iniquitous, you better believe animals will also be inhabited by dark forces, which is probably why, because I read statistics a lot, there have been too many people dismembered by dogs this week and last week.
What?
I mean dismembered. Right? Dismembered. For example, 2 days ago, there was a woman. The guys obviously always had dogs, but this particular day, this woman was taking her trash out. She was 72, I believe it was. These dogs jumped the fence and dismembered her.
Dear
they
Lord.
Dismembered her. So you have animals now that are just, they're just going off. Now, of course, I do backstories, and everybody else can too. I encourage this. Out of every accident you read about, every happening like this, always go into one of these search engines, do a backstory on the individual, find out everything you can to see if they were a believer or not. Because I'm telling you, when you start looking at these stories, Pastor Paul, you find out that there are people who go through these traumatic things that were never believers. And you find out folks that were kept from harm or had minimal, some minimal danger. They just scrapes and scars. They were believers. That's what you find. And it never fails to end up that way. So if that's good for people to do, they can do it right now while the search engines are open. They can do deep analytical scans of such things. But it's both fascinating, but it's also a type of horror. Now that you see that animal life is actually hunting.
Well, you said that would happen. You said that we would see the animals would become violent. The Bible says that, even in the Bible here in Revelation, it says that there's going to be these things are going to start happening, including people will die from the beast of the earth. So it's like the animals turn on the humans. That's kind of what you're saying, and
that's, which is bad.
Bad,
right? Because animals have a natural fear of humanity, and God gave man dominion.
Right.
A demonic spirit, though, can cause that animal to become rebellious against their original purpose.
Absolutely.
And I believe what you just said, that this conflagration of demonic entities all over the place, because man is turning away from the living God, which leaves more and more places where man dwells, more and more places where the Holy Spirit is not. And where the Holy Spirit is not, of course, you're going to have darkness, right? Darkness is going to consume everything it can. It will go through every crack not covered by a saint. And unfortunately, during this time, because so many people live these factual lives, they just operate by fact and not spiritually, not by internal confirmation, not by conviction, but they live a different way. You're having more and more spaces where darkness can actually invade and indeed dwell with family.
Yeah, because we have the Holy Spirit. That is the resistor that gives us the power to. It's in Revelation chapter 6, verse 8. Thank you. It's during the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. I think it's the pale horse, where there also beasts are used. Mike, let's shift gears a little bit if we could. Maybe we've got to go over to Ukraine and Russia's situation. A couple things I want to ask you about. Number one, Putin has just he just drafted almost 135,000 young men between the age of 18 and 27. This is a mandatory draft. He said, "Don't worry, I'm not going to send you to the war." I mean, if you believe that, I got some swampland in Louisiana we can sell you.
There you go.
And the other thing is this: what about Poland? They have, and you can tell me if this is true or where they may have them positioned, but I'm hearing 142,000 troops maybe on the border of Ukraine or along the border with Russia.
They better. The NATO has been building up. About 4 days into this conflict, NATO had to build up as soon as Putin moved some of the launch the CNC centers for nuclear arms. Okay, they had to. Right now, NATO is highly concerned about Russia doing a preeminent strike against someone. They don't know who, but everything he's doing looks like he's going to make some sort of offensive move that's just not going to be in favor of NATO. He's cutting off. He's cutting off the gas, right?
Yeah, he's cutting off to Europe.
If they don't have the ruble, right?
Yep.
They're not going to be able to buy gas. I know that people are saying, well, they're going to call us bluff. They're just going to go to their contingency. Europe cannot survive without Russia's gas. They can't do that. It's going to start to bankrupt them, right? It's also going to diminish their own fuel supplies because they have special fuel demands for their military. They just simply can't manufacture all that. Iran is not going to make up, nor is Saudi Arabia going to make. Saudi Arabia has had a falling out with the USA. They've had a falling out with NATO. Period. They're clearly rewriting how they operate as a nation. They're totally turning their backs on relationship that's been built over many different years, and so they're doing just what I thought they would do, which is why.
That's why you said you never trust them.
That place.
That's why you said you can never trust the Saudis. You said you'll never.
No.
Yeah.
No. Those and Jordan. I know Jordan. Jordan is inhabited by folks right now. Better just not right. Period. They can have a good standard all they want, but when you go back to their core belief, they do not believe in Christ Jesus. Period. And they promote Islam, and now they're promoting the Mahdi.
Yes, they are. Yes, I do.
It's starting to get it's starting to get real, right?
Yeah,
it's going to get real shaky.
Part of it, Mike, is the king of Jordan is a direct descendant of the Prophet Muhammad, and he's also a descendant of the Hashmonite kingdom in the Bible. So this makes him a double chosen one almost. And I'm not saying he's the guy that brings, but is the Mahdi, because the Mahdi is going to appear apparent in their minds. He appears from somewhere, whether he crawls out of a well in Saudi Arabia or he comes raging down with a sword with Jesus Christ tagging along. I don't know. But because of King of Jordan, his DNA makes him real special. And is that why he's probably in charge of the Temple Mount even now? I don't know. But you're saying there's something special with Jordan as far as a supernatural.
His loyalties are going to lie with his heritage, not with Christianity. No. He's going to be at his core against Christ, period. Period. And in fact, all these nations that are loyal to the Islamic faith, they're going to be against Christ. That leaves Israel with one ally, not France, not Germany, not any of those folks, because they're compromised right now by too high of a Muslim population, right? Yeah. I don't know what they're thinking, Pastor Paul, but you have Russia in trouble, right? Yep. Russia they're predominantly Islamic right now.
Yeah.
Who knew? And then you have France, which is overwhelmed with an Islamic population, people in prestige positions. You have the USA. We have Islamic folks running all the gas pumps. If they ever wanted to rebel inside this country, they would just stop running their stores, and then no gas would flow. If you look up stats in America, you'll find that most gas stations are owned by people who are Islamic, not American.
Right.
That's an issue. That's a problem. But anyway, you have all these nations. They're absolutely, even right now, because Israel knows they have to make some sort of aggressive move because NATO is not going to do it. The Ukrainians are dying. NATO has not, they have not intervened properly, in my opinion. They haven't. They underestimated Putin, which means they believed in their own facts and they got everything wrong. They are reactionary too much. They're not proactive. And so Israel, without the U.S., Israel has no hope.
Well, you know
we have
what
something forming here that's very dangerous.
What you just said is the exact opposite narrative of what the media is telling us. Every day they're telling us that Ukraine is winning this war, that Russia's tucked its tail and it's retreating, they're on their way out, and that the Ukrainian people are winning. They're also telling us that the United States and the NATO nations have been pumping tons of weapons in there and it's helped drive the Russians back. The truth is, they haven't hardly seen any weapons from NATO nations, especially the United States. The people are being slaughtered, and the Russians aren't retreating. They're just redeploying, repositioning. I mean, Putin hasn't even begun to fight. He's not even started what he's going to do. Am I saying the right thing here, Mike?
Yeah, you're saying it right, because he has not used any mainline forces. Yep. None. He's basically recruited people who have an ego to fight. They want to fight. He said, hey, go take this junkyard equipment, go do it. So it's no big loss to him. But you have a country and its people, they're being exiled from their own land.
Yep.
If I would have, anybody else would have done this a different way, but I believe they believe in their own rhetoric, and that's scary. When you believe in your own rhetoric, you're in trouble. And if your rhetoric has led to nothing but disaster after disaster, something is wrong with that. And so that's what we have. People trust their own speeches, and we have an issue with that. It's almost like people have lost their intestinal fortitude to fight for their fellow man. They're not fighting for their fellow man.
Right.
They're fighting to gain points and prestige and to keep,
Well, someone just made a comment.
Money and other things.
Somebody just made a comment in the chat room. Says, Paul, I know of soldiers who are using foreign weapons to fight. Of course, because Ukraine doesn't even hardly produce any of their weapons. Everything they use is hand-me-down junk that they've been given from one country to another. Remember, we signed a deal with Ukraine in the proliferation of nuclear weapons. We told the Ukrainian people, if you give up your nukes, we will be there for you if you're ever attacked by Russia. Don't worry, we got you. Where's Joe Biden on defending our honor to do exactly that? Why hasn't anybody called out the President of the United States and say, hey, we have a deal with these folks. They're being slaughtered, and you're just sitting back, and you still haven't done one thing. And we promised them that if this ever happened, we would not let Russia do it. So there's a and all of NATO agreed to this. It's not just the United States. Mike, you know this.
And what does it tell you, though, really? It means that they're not, because if they step in there and intervene, they know Putin is not bluffing, and he will launch anybody who helps. And that's why. But look at that situation. He's backed down the entirety of NATO, right?
Yeah.
He really has.
Yeah.
Through a threat that he's willing to back up. But we can overpower him as far as, collectively, but it really says something towards our postures, right? Is sending a message to the world.
Well, let's ask you something.
The result of this situation is the end of this situation is going to really tell the story, which I personally believe is going to change the paradigm and the powers of government. I really do believe that.
Yeah, I do too. And that's actually fulfillment of biblical prophecy. Let me throw another one out for you. You brought up Israel. Israel's not afraid to act if they have to, and they will. But look at this. Putin is turning off the oil on Europe. Without Russian oil, 30% shortage of oil for all of Europe. Europe has to get oil somewhere. Where are they going to get it? Saudis aren't going to sell it to them. The Iranians aren't going to sell it to them. And we could start drilling again and produce enough for ourselves and Europe. But do you see that happening in Washington?
Washington has, as of last week, Pastor Paul, they sent out the order. They have restarted. All the wells are in prep to restart. But Pastor, that takes a month and a half to get going. You just don't start pumping oil and produce it just like that, right?
Nope.
They have the master key to let loose some of the stockpiles that we have, but they had to be careful in doing that because it gives away our location of storage. You can't let any other nation know where the USA is storing its oil, right? And so I'm certainly not going to see it here, but I'll say this: it's in no obvious spot. And, it takes a lot to get there, but they're going to unlock it, begin to feed some of their transition systems or stations in Texas, which, by the way, that's something I would not have said. I believe you said that to appease some of the constituents out there, but we turn that oil on. That's not going to help Israel. That's not going to help. Israel gets their fuel from us. Right. That's how they refuel their aircraft. They have an order in right now for aircraft fuel. We cannot fulfill that order right now due to what's happening in the Ukraine.
Right.
Many supplies or fuel is being kept back because it's a political move. If fuel goes to the Ukraine, then Russia's going to be infuriated. That's direct interference, and we're caught in this weird situation. So all this boils down to this: Putin is planning some type of preemptive strike. Okay, he's going to cut off supplies to Europe.
Yep.
Now, if this doesn't work, if he cannot boost his economy by this, right? If he can't do that, he's going to go the extra mile. He won't hesitate to do it. He's fed up with his own people. He's already gotten rid of 2 more traitors today. He feels this Putin is he's by no means isolated. I don't know why people are thinking that. He's not worried. He's not disturbed. This guy is absolutely fixated on the end goal.
Yep.
And so, but if anybody betrays him, that's going to be the last person they betray, because he can reach out and touch people on every single continent. He has done this over and over again. And so we have a guy who's running a country who has already threatened nuclear war. He's going to cut off the fuel. He already has. Listen, he's a master chip maker. Russia makes one of the chips no country can do without. I wonder how many people are aware of this. And so he's going to cut that off too, because the sanctions are going to shut down, that little open thing there. War. So we have that going, and it's going to be a matter of time before Putin actually does what he has to do. And this is why NATO has commissioned or setting forward about 500,000 more troops are going to be right there at that border, so that Putin can't go across it. But that's so stupid. And I'll tell you why.
Okay.
If Putin does anything, he's going to do it by air.
Yes.
Right.
By
we
air.
even have our centrifugal. We have our centrifugal launchers online for the first time. And I know people have probably not heard of that, but we have a different launch system that does not take fuel. And so they have been in operation for a week now. Right. Think of it as a top. You spin it real fast. Right? And then you just let it go. Well, if you can do that, whatever spins at the end of that's going to fly out there. They launch things into space this way.
I did not know that.
Maybe you didn't know what you know now.
No, I
there
didn't
are a lot
know
of
that.
things people are going to start, they're going to start getting wind of. They're going to say, my goodness, where have we been? So they're activating quite a bit of things. Things are slipping out to the public. They can't help but to do that. It's going to become quite confusing for the average person, because reality is a little more than what people think it is.
Is it now? I do know they're using a technology called some type of a laser technology where you get a spaceship, or you get something flying, and then you just let it ride along. It rides an energy beam. I don't know if I'm saying it right.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. That was theorized, I believe, in it was actually made in the 80s.
I knew he was going to say it's 40-year-old technology. Okay, that shows you how far I'm behind, Mike. I mean,
well, but the average person fastball, unless you have been, working very close to some of these things, you wouldn't know it. You wouldn't know that they can take one of the rockets that Elon Musk makes, right, and launch it without fuel. People don't know that. You get that thing going at around 50,000 revolutions per minute, and go even higher, where it has. Listen, when the things launch from these systems, it's 85,000 Gs. 85,000 Gs. So you can't launch a person that way, but you can launch electronics that way. 85,000 Gs. That is incredible. So they launch it from the surface to up into the atmosphere that way.
Wow.
Right?
Yes. Folks, Mike Around the World's with us tonight. He's breaking a lot of barriers here. How's that? We're really moving fast because things are happening that fast. Here's a question then for you, Mike, as we're looking at this thing with Russia, and we know they could a preemptive strike. You call it a preemptive strike.
Yes.
That's because Putin's going to call it that, isn't he? Whenever he strikes, he's going to say, I had to do this because NATO forced me into it. He's going to call it, he's going to coin it a preemptive strike, because he feels that by saying it's preemptive, He says that we were going to do this. Do you see him attacking a nation in Europe preemptive? Do you see him attacking the United States, coming through the back door through Alaska? Or do you see him attacking Israel? Where do you think the first danger spot is?
He can't attack one. He can attack one. If he attacks just one nation, right, there's going to not be Russia, right? He can attack one. He's going to attack the major ones all at one time. If he does a preemptive, it's going to be a strike against multiple nations.
Wow!
He cannot do
one.
Retaliation would be absolute.
So you're saying he's going to attack the United States, the UK, Germany, France.
He'll have to.
Well, it's news.
If he just hits the USA, right? Say he aims something. He didn't hit Alaska, but he hit our East Coast. Yeah. Right, then retaliation would be swift and absolute from everybody else. If he just hits parts of NATO near Germany and all those places, then the reactionary effect of that will be absolute and swift. Right, so he's losing every way by hitting one tactfully. And he would have to have multiple launches at several targets at the same time. Can he do this? You better believe it.
He can.
Does he have hypersonics and a delivery system that can make this happen? You better believe it. Can China and Russia link their systems to coordinate hypersonic deliveries? Yes, they can. They have already mastered this. That's what that last hypersonic demonstration of China was. That was with Russian coordination. So they can take CNC or command and control over each other's tech, right? All they have to do is do a handover. They can do that with hypersonics. That changes everything. That means that means China can launch something. Russia can direct it or send it right to its target. So we have problems worldwide, and these things are escalating. Not to mention the radiation. It's been confirmed that radiation has penetrated parts of the Ukraine it shouldn't have.
Let's talk about that.
It was a big surprise to a lot of people around there. They almost leaked a story yesterday about that, Pascal. I think they're trying to let people know.
I think I heard.
That's an issue.
Well, I actually found something this evening that Russian soldiers are dying. I mean, they're dreadfully sick from digging trenches near Chernobyl. Radiation poisoning, brutal. Are you hearing anything like that?
Yeah. There's some underneath the ground. That facility, any nuclear facility, is going to be submerged below the waterline. They do that for safety and cooling reasons. Chernobyl is leaking, so it's actually saturating the grounds underneath the surface of the earth, that top layer, but it's spreading more than what was anticipated, right? And it's more intense than what was anticipated, which means there's been some sort of a breakdown at that facility. They're just not telling everybody because the danger's there. The radioactive signature can be seen from satellites. And these things, that thing could actually really harm some people long term out there. I believe that eventually, here's what I believe. I believe that a nuclear accident, disaster, or mistake is going to be so incredibly evident within a month or so, because when you have so many mechanisms in motion, you increase your chances of mistakes, of error. And this is going to happen. Chernobyl is one place, but also in the USA, we have a lot of mechanisms moving on the East Coast around a specific nuclear facility, but our security is not the greatest. And I'll tell you, I have a major complaint about that every single week. I make the complaint every single week, and I'm going to continue to do that because if this place goes, then we're going to change before everybody else does. And our security is not the best. They have to take things a little more seriously. They have to redirect resources and make sure that the people are protected and stop. So you in your position.
So you in your position in the government, which we are not going to disclose at all, but you are filing complaints every week, security complaints about a certain nuclear facility in the East Coast.
Yeah, voice my opinion. I'll continue to do so because, Pastor, if security is not, they advertise a lot. We brag about a lot, but not everything that is talked about, bragged about is true. So we have vulnerabilities, and they're going to be exploited. It's just a matter of time.
Now, two more things here. I want to make sure I get to. One, we're going to talk about Israel. in all of this. But first of all, there, of course, Putin has not yet, that I know of, and maybe he has, used chemical weapons or biological weapons yet on the civilians of Ukraine. But he is still slaughtering them using airstrikes and what have you. And there are people, I get emails from people say, Bagley, why are you worried about the Ukrainians? They're dirty people. They're this kind of people. They're whatever kind of people. They're corrupt and all that. I'm sitting there thinking, where is your compassion? These are people, women, children, being butchered. I don't care what country they're from. I don't care who it is. No matter, all around the world, there's no excuse for this. His war, he's not fighting soldiers. He's really not fighting Ukrainian soldiers. He's fighting the Ukrainian people. Am I right?
Yeah, you know what, Pastor? In every single conflict, this war specifically has nothing to do with the people, has everything to do with those at top leadership. The people just so happen to be involved. Right.
Yeah.
It's happening to people. And you know, it really is unfair. We have good and bad people everywhere.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Good and bad people everywhere. But when it comes to war, when you're fighting over territory, fighting over political issues or disputes and things like that, that's army to army, not
Yep.
army to people. The people have nothing to do with the conflict. It doesn't matter if they're nice people or not. They have nothing to do with the conflict. But this thing, what we see now happening is that it has really encouraged a lot of people to enter into the fight. Right. We see an escalation. We're going to see a weekly escalation. Just this week, I believe there were 10,000 that came back to the Ukraine to fight, specifically to fight.
Yep.
There are veterans all over the world. They're going right to the Ukraine to fight. We have a lot of Middle Eastern folks who are going to the Ukraine to fight. I mean, it's really starting to act as a vacuum for all those who really want to fight. Why are they doing this? Because they're trying to. Many of them are fighting because they want to protect the innocent folks. And when I say innocent, it means they have nothing to do with Russia's argument or the Ukraine's
It's
argument.
right. You're
These
right.
are people caught in the middle.
Yes. All right, Mike, let's talk about Israel now, because Israel certainly has got enemies all around them. And anytime a war is breaking loose, and this war is just now starting, I hate to tell people that, but if you think this thing's about over, you have to understand we're all at war now. We're all at war, whether it's cyber, economic, currency, weaponry, biological weapon. We're all at war, Mike. You know we are. We're all at war. So the question is, Israel, from a prophetic standpoint, they see this going on, and they know that when there's war and confusion, they become a prime target for the enemy that hates them, and they are hated. Do you see Israel doing a preemptive strike on somebody or doing something to get out ahead of it, or will they sit and wait?
Israel is very nervous. They're very not nervous. I would say they're very astute concerning Iran, right? Yeah. And nobody's listening. In the UN right now, nobody listens to Israel. They put Israel in their place. And just in case nobody knew this, when it comes to Israel, here's how they're viewed with the UN. The UN sees Israel as a state they created. But no one should ever forget that this began in 1945. Yes, it was a good act. It was also prophecy, but they believe they are the ones responsible for Israel today. And so they exercise absolute control over Israel.
Yeah.
Absolute control. Israel cannot make a move unless they give it the okay. And you have, I hate to say this, you got the Vatican, who, if he does not bless an action of the UN, is just simply not going to happen.
Yep.
If they don't receive that blessing from the Vatican, it never happens.
Yep.
He talked to Russia right before this outbreak, right?
Yep.
He did. He talked to him.
Yes,
and
he did.
when you see an outbreak, and wait, I knew that was it. When he went to go visit, it wasn't to deter. It was almost to give that approval.
The blessing.
Okay, this time or something like that. So nothing in this world seems to happen without the Vatican's approval. And, these small things, if people begin to see them, well, then they'll also see that no one wants Israel to have a free voice. But they're pressed. Israel is pressed to the wall because Iran is going to take absolute and total advantage of the situation. They have a fleet of drones that is unmatched. Even Turkey can't match the fleet of drones sitting in Iran. Putin forbids anybody to touch Iran. Right? He forbids.
Right.
One of the reasons we have sanctions against Russia is to wear them down so that we can do something about Iran, but it's not working. The only way to get to Iran is to move Russia out of the way. That's the only way. And so, but it's not working because now the ruble is about to be expelled straight through the air, because when you start cutting off fuel, believe me, people are going to say, well, wait a minute. Well, it's not that serious. I said, of course it is. Israel is going to have to preempt because the danger is going to keep rising and everybody else is going to keep talking. Right. But when they do preempt, that's when everybody in the world is going to say you acted. You were just overbearing. You went over the top. That's inhumane. And the entire world will turn against Israel in 1 hour. In 1 hour. Yeah. And they'll have no allies.
Yep. You're right. This is the real deal, folks. This is why Mike's here tonight. This is why we're talking about. Notice what's happening. We're talking distress of nations, the same time we have signs in the heavens. Exactly what it says in Luke 21. Exactly what Joel chapter 2 said would happen. Exactly what Christ said in Matthew 24 and Mark 13 and Revelation revealing it every bit. We're talking about mankind at each other's throats to the point of an apocalyptic. You can imagine if 25 cities in the world were hit with nuclear bombs in one night. 25 major cities. And you know that could happen very easily, Mike. Very easily. And then we wake up, whoever does wake up, in a post-apocalyptic world, which would have total lawlessness and no control. That's a prime situation for the Antichrist to make his move. Or major effects from the binary system, the heavens that are shaking, massive catastrophic events, or both, because they seem to be converging. We're living in the end times, like Jesus said, a time like never has been nor never will be is upon us. People need to give their life to Jesus Christ. Mike, man, I just went down these tonight, all these things that are happening, these earthquakes, the last couple of days and all these things. It's like you tell us, you kind of give us a nice little heads up. We get 2-3 weeks and then we got to deal with it. Is that, what should we look for next week? Okay.
Well, I tell you what, Pastor Paul, I am the fires, right? The cruel fires. That could very well be the top.
Cruel fires. Are they man-made? Cruel fires.
No, not man-made.
Okay.
Not man-made. I'm going to call them cruel because they will consume lives. Most of the fires, people have been blessed with these fires. We're blessed to have minimal life loss in these fires. But that's not always promised to be the future, right? So some of these fires are going to be quite large. And with the weather phenomena and the sheer volume of lightning strikes, we're going to have some fire situations in the world like we've never seen before. And so that's I've got my attention is there specifically.
Then we will watch.
We likely will have 2 brand new volcanic eruptions topside. These are going to be topside, but I need some more insight into one of them before I open my big jabberjaws, because I don't want to frighten anybody. But
right.
I'm expecting 2 major eruptions also in a very small time frame. Very small time frame.
I worry about Chile, and I worry about the Caribbeans, and I worry about Italy. Yeah. We'll see.
Yeah, if they again, if we get that instability marker in Chile, where it knocks the coast plate loose, California is gonna that whole place is gonna fall into a void, right? They've already confirmed the void, and so that whole landmass gets built very easily.
Southern California. All right, We'll watch close. And Mike, thank you for coming on, being with us tonight, and we look forward to seeing you next Thursday. God bless you.
God bless you, Pastor Paul. It's always an honor. God bless everybody out there. See you guys next time.
All right. Thank you, Mike. God bless. God bless. Mike from around the world, folks, being awesome tonight, to be honest with you, wasn't he? I mean, because really he answered some questions that's kind of been rolling around in our minds. Not just only my, when I ask these questions, it's not just my questions. I hear you all week. Heidi, we get feedback from many different directions, and we kind of collectively pull it together and say, we do need to ask this question. And as I have been noticing how things are flowing, I noticed that Mike is pretty well on the same page that I am on just about every bit of that. He has more info than I have, but he said that, some of his colleagues said, I wonder how come Begley knew about this article, how he picked up on this. Well, about the sun, about the stuff going the opposite direction, and how that's got to come from a binary system or secondary source, right? And he said they called him and said, how does Begley know this? Well, I know this because I've been listening, and we've been talking about this every week, and you put the piece together, and I read this. And I read this more and believe this more than all the rest of the talking heads that are on the media or in these conspiracy theories stations and channels that are out there. We don't know what in the world they're doing. To be honest with you, they're not qualified to lead sheep when you run with the goats. I'll say that one more time. You are not qualified to lead sheep when all you do is run with the goats. Okay? And if you're going to make it to heaven, folks, you're not going to get there on the wrong road, on the long, winding road that's headed to destruction. The thing to do is to come to Christ just as we are. We're all simple. We're all needing to be redeemed, and only Christ can redeem us. And he will redeem us if we'll call upon his name. I'm going to get a song for you. And if you would ask yourself in your heart, the Bible says, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life.